Well, here we go, guys. We're getting ready to work on this caliper handle, which is how we used to steer the Hobie Mirage Eclipse. Now this handle gets a lot of use as you turn one to go right, you turn the other to go left. And I put a lot of mileage on mine, so I also put a lot of wear and tear. Now I'm finding that some of this can be avoided by making sure there's not too much restriction between this point and the point of your rudder. So making sure that set screw back on your rudder is not set for any sort of tension at all. That is there for the sole purpose of locking that fin in place. Let's get a closer look on some of the things you're going to need before you even begin to tackle. First of all, you're going to need your replacement caliper handle. It's right there. Okay, that's the brand new one. The part number is right there on that bag. So take a screenshot, do what you need. There it is. I suggest a small pair of needle nuts, something to cut some wire with, a straight slot, a Phillips screwdriver, a marker, a bright color, black would work as well. And the other thing you're going to need is a piece of wire. Now I suggest you get a piece of wire from a, let's say, a Cat 5 wire that might feed a phone jack. So there's a place. What you're going to need is at least a foot. So make sure you get your part. You're going to have to call your local Hobie dealer. I'd like everybody to take a close look at what we're looking at here. This is the locking point where the steering cable is locked down by a set screw. This is a great design, except part of the problem is the screw itself begins to break the strands one by one, and as they do, they finally break, ruining your paddling day. So first we're going to need our Phillips screwdriver to take out this pin, which is nothing more than a screw that goes through. There is a locking nut on the other side. Check and tighten these on a regular basis, not too tight, but they I have actually lost the nut on the other side of one of mine. Alright, so I'm using this battery operated electric screw gun just to remove this, and making sure that I catch the nut on the other side. This is the pin that holds this handle in place. If you see that little hole there, that's what lines up with this. And this is broken and needs a replacement. Okay, now that we've got this out, we're going to identify which cable we're dealing with. And in this case, it is the white toggle that is connected to that particular handle. So that will pull up all the way as I'm trying to work on this. So what we want to do is mark that wire that we were talking about, which is a steering cable. We want to just mark it a little bit. It'll help us when we're reinserting it to go past that little damage if we can't see it. And now that we've got that marked, we can take a screwdriver and back out this little screw. Now this screw will fall. So you want to maintain, put it in your little tool and parts bucket. Now this can pull out a little farther, but there's one more little itsy bitsy thing we got to do, which is kind of a pain in the butt. You'll see that little silver thing right there. That is a spring, and that spring goes around a little tab. And we need to disconnect it without stretching dealio there. So as we've already pointed out, we have a spring to remove. Easiest way to remove that spring is to examine which way you need to take this little spring, and then you just pop it off of the tab. If you look inside the caliper itself handle there, you'll see the spring. Now here it is. Okay, and that's the part that I just unhooked. So this is going to be one of your hairiest things to do right here. And also one of the reasons why you will need a wire to assist in this. Now you can pry this open, get that off that tab, put that in your little parts bowl, and now, since you've removed this set screw, you can pull the wire out. Okay, now there is our broken caliper handle. In this case, it is my right caliper handle. Now that we have successfully removed the broken caliper handle, we are going to now begin the reverse process of reinstalling it. I have already taken my wire and, as small as I possibly could, wrapped it around the steering cable, trying to make sure there's no snag so that when I pull this through, it comes without any gripes or coming undone. Okay? What we're going to want to do here, because there's a pulley, we want to run my little guide wire through the top part of the pulley, back out the bottom, not wrapping around anything but the pulley. Okay? So already you can see we're getting caught up here. So now that we've got that going, we need to insert this into the correct hole. So now we're just going to feed this. Basically, the cable comes in through here, loops around this handle, and goes right back out there, and then it does another hook for the set screw. So now this is the tricky part where you either lose your cable from your little guide string or not. If you can see in there to see where it's going, that makes it a little better. Now that we have it, let's claim success and let's tie this wire off so it doesn't go away. What I wanted to show you guys is this little tab here. You see this little tab here? This is where the spring goes. So the spring that we don't want to lose has little loops on both ends, as you'll see. We don't want to bend those loops out. It needs to stick out the other side, but it's easier to put it in this way. You just kind of wrap the loop over the head of the tab that they gave you. And be careful because it will fall off and you don't want to lose it. So we're going to insert this guide wire in through the hole where the spring is going to attach. We're then going to wrap it around the spring in a very secure manner because it is a spring. So we don't want to pull our guide wire off. Okay. Now this hole isn't quite as small, so it's not as difficult. Just where you can see it a little better. So you can see I'm getting my knot out of there. And then once again, I just get it around the little tab that is provided. Right there. Okay. Now I can remove this wire. And I want to do this without undoing my spring. So I've got that one out. And now we're gonna move on to getting the brake caliper cable where it belongs. Okay, now that we've got the cable sticking out of here, we're going to wrap it around, loop it back on itself into the larger hole where the set screw will then hold it into place. So before I do that, you're going to remember the little mark I made. Well, it's kind of going away because I'm handling it, so I'm going to refresh it a little bit. The damage to the wire is right over there, so I don't want to be on the other side of that because it's going to break. And since I have this out, I'm going to take advantage of the fact that I can get a little more meat from it. So then I reinsert this into where the set screw goes. Hopefully you can see my little black mark on there. And then I go and round up the set screw. Once I have the set screw in there, now remember, this is the thing that actually damages this cable, and the reason why Hobie is probably going to be replacing a lot of these little cables. Now, I'm not putting it all the way in right now. It's retaining the cable just fine. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go down the shaft and pull on the toggle on the end of this brake or this steering cable. And you'll see it go away. Okay? Now that I have that down, we're going to screw this in and make it a little tighter. I want to encourage you not to overdo it, because that's where us cutting into the wire occurs. In fact, you may not want to honker down on it much at all. Okay? So now, everything is almost done. Let me reach into my handy dandy little bowl of stuff, my parts, and I have one last part left, and that is the pin for the handle to work on. So we're going to line the holes up. It's not hard to do. Going to run that through. I got the nut on the other end of my finger here. Just find the other end. And there we have it. I'll snug that up and we'll be good to go. Okay, we now have our steering assembly handlebar unit back in place. We've got our brake caliper handles replaced with new ones. We've got our set screws set. We've got our steering cables attached to the toggles that attach it to the steering. Noticing right away that we're getting some wear and tear on the very top of that loop based on what this cable is going to do. So we're going to have to do some maintenance on that someday in the very near future. Back here, we go back to the rudder itself, and from the top side of the rudder, we have an adjustment here, and we want to always make sure that that's as loose as possible, not to where it falls out, but to where it does not cause any restriction.